Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salilo Makwidiri. The time is 9 minutes past 10, and we're going to be switching into a very, very important segment of the show. It's called hashtag Ramadan Under Occupation. And in on this segment, we speak to Muslims from across the world who are experiencing a very, very testing Ramadan where the circumstances are not as easy or might not be as palatable as they are for you and I here in South Africa and in other parts of the world. And as those Muslims across the world observe the sacred month, for millions and millions of them, it is a time for reflection, unity, and spiritual renewal. However, for the Rohingya people living under the occupation and in refugee camps, Ramadan is marked by immense hardship. This year, we're going to focus on the experience of the Rohingya during this blessed month as they continue to face severe challenges to their faith, culture, and the basic human rights. And in this conversation, we'll explore the resilience of the Rohingya community, the obstacles that they face in observing Ramadan, and the humanitarian efforts, if there are any, that are underway to alleviate their struggles. And joining us to shed light on this pressing issue is Abdullah. He's a freelance journalist, researcher, and winner of the 2023 Nansen Refugees Award for Asia and the Pacific. Abdullah, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time and helping us gain insight into what the Rohingya Muslims are currently going and surviving through, and a very, very difficult circumstance during this month of Ramadan.
Thank you so much for having me here in this, you know, important discussion on about especially about the Ramadan people are celebrating in different kind of, situation, especially those who are displaced, who lost everything, due to the war, due to several kind of reasons. So and among them, we, the Rohingya people, are also um, so much vulnerable, and we have been going through, uh, such a vulnerable situation for last 8 years in the Rohingya camp, Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, which is known as the world largest refugee camp.
Hmm.
So yes, I'm really uh, happy to be here to share some inside of the situation here, how people are celebrating the Ramadan in the refugee camp.
Mm, mm. I think the mistakes that we normally do, and this is I think something that needs to be addressed very, very importantly from journalists all across the world, is whenever we interact with you guys, with colleagues, whether in Gaza or in all the parts of the world that are going through difficulties, there's always this sense of almost separating you from the story, without understanding that it is integrated. You're also living through the difficulties. If you can just maybe touch on that a bit, your own lived experience, at a refugee camp, and the difficulties that you write about, that you document, without separating yourself from them, but being fully immersed and having the full experience of some of these tragedies and oppressions that are being experienced by yourself and your people.
Yeah, actually, that is true that what if I explain you how I see myself and our people going through, and what I document mostly. So, and it is not like I'm documenting others, it
Mm,
is like I am documenting also myself, because I'm also one of them, and staying together. And I spent also almost 8 years together in the refugee camp. So overall, whatever I share, whatever I document, it is like it is a reflection of the people, of here. Not one
mm,
person is reflecting, one person is explaining. come into the refugee camp and visiting and observing the situation and explaining to the world. It is not like that. It is something like, the people who are suffering, are telling the story of their own self, you know, are letting the world, what those people are going through. So,
mm,
so being a, a photographer, a documentary video maker, what we always try to capture the moment that what what make us feel like we are nothing. Sometimes we feel hopeless after seeing the life out of the refugee camp. You know, so at that time, it make us feel that the life we are living here is meaningless. So and it is a kind of message to the world that people, anyone, they do not want the life like this, the refugee life.
mm,
So,
mm,
so it is a kind of a message to the humanity to come forward to help those people who are in difficult situation around the world.
mm, mm. Can you maybe just hone in on those realities that you're describing? If you can, for the rest of the world, for our viewers, for South Africans who might be watching this, if you can just describe what the month of Ramadan has been like for the Rohingya people in refugee camps, living under an occupation, being so far away from home, and in circumstances that are not, the best. Just tell us how what's Ramadan been like. What are the day-to-day challenges that you guys are experiencing?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. So I would say the Ramadan, the Ramadan days in the refugee camp is not the similar people who are celebrating in outside of the camp in their country, in their own villages, in their own home. So those the refugee who are staying inside the camp and they are celebrating Ramadan mean already they are in difficult situation, and during the Ramadan it becomes double. The
Mm,
difficulties, the challenges, the suffering, all those tragedy become double. They have to go through double triple challenges to during the Ramadan. So first of all, already initially the Rohingya people are suffering due to the insufficient food insecurity for a long time, because 90% of the refugees are relying on the ration that they receive from the WFP. Rohingya refugees do not have the earning source. They cannot work for earning. So 90% of the people just they just survive on the rations. So and those rations are also very limited. You know,
mm,
and this become a big problem during the Ramadan, because during the Ramadan people want to have enough food, good food in the table. So and but it is not for the Rohingya people because they cannot manage good meal, good food for the suhoor or for the iftar, because they do
mm,
not have earnings to by themselves. So it is one of the problem. Another problem, people face, the Tarvali shelter, it is not a good living, place. So it's feel hot during the summer, unbearable, and if it is winter, also the cold is unbearable. So during the Ramadan, when people keep fast, so either they have cooler system, or they have a place to go and rest and get some fresh air. So all the day they have to stay inside the shelter. You know,
mm,
the shelter is also very narrow, very small, and super crowded place. So when people go for prayer, and the mosques are also not, in good stable situation. Those are also broken. There is no fan or any other system. So all the way, the people are face always the difficulties in every part of the activity during the Ramadan.
Mm,
So, but we are also fortunate that there is no restriction of about praying, keeping fast, because we are privileged that we are in the Muslim country. So there is nothing to do with this, like restriction and other thing. So, and for the being a Muslim and being a Rohingya Muslim, we can celebrate the Ramadan freely. But the problem what we face is a lack of this resources,
mm.
in the camp.
Mm. And speaking of, the lack of resources, the headline for much of the beginning of this year was Donald Trump's move to drastically cut almost, all kinds of funding, USAID funding programs, to areas like, those refugee camps that the Rohingya people find themselves in. And I think there was around 43 billion dollars in USAID that was directly coming into the refugee camps of the people of Rohingya. Have you seen tangible consequences of the withdrawal aid? Has it become a bit more difficult after that announcement by Donald Trump in the United States of America?
Exactly. Since we hear about the suspension of the fund, globally, and especially the USA aid fund, so we were shocked because. We can say that the USA ad have been, has been working and supporting the Rohingya refugees, and US has been a great donor for the Rohingya crisis. We are grateful for that. So, but when we hear about the fund suspension, suddenly the USA aid, they request to their partner to stop their activities running in the camp and outside of the camp in the host community. So that caused a big impact, a big change, in the Rohingya refugee. We are seeing, so the some of the educational facilities are being stopped, and some of the clinic are being stopped, which were supported by the USA aid. And after a few days later, we are hearing about the ration card from the WFP. So
Mm,
the WP also, given the reason that so we are going to cut the ration because of the fund shortage. So that could be also an impact of the fund suspension by the U.S. government. So, and from the NASMAN, it is hearing that from the NASMAN, Rohingya will get only $6 per person for the whole month.
mm,
So with $6, you can imagine, with $6, a person cannot survive one day, and we are supposed to survive for the whole month. So you can imagine how it would be difficult for the Rohingya people, for the more than 1 million refugees who are just dependent on this ration.
mm,
So if they have to go through, if they have to survive with only $6, which is a very very small amount, if we calculate in Bangladeshi currency, it's come like 24 taka uh, per day. So if I try to buy something with 24 taka, I will get only two banana or one
wow,
cake. So
wow.
for one person, if he has only two banana to survive the whole days, and that way the whole month and the whole year, so you can imagine how people will be, mentally and physically destroyed, and
Mm,
people will go through the hunger, starvation. Children will face malnutrition. So
no,
the situation will be going very ocean and like we never experienced before. So this is one of the most horrible thing that we are imagine that we will be suffering in coming days.
No, you're painting a very, very bleak picture. I can only, try and imagine what that situation is like. But despite the hardships, how do the Rohingya community keep their spiritual and religious traditions alive during this month? And how does the sense of community change during Ramadan when people are living under such oppression and such difficult and unimaginable circumstances?
Okay, let me give you two different perspective of the Rohingya people. So we have people in Rakhine State, in Arkan State, under the under the control of Arkan army. You know, so those Rohingya people are in a critical situation. So they do not have any human train services since there has been going a civil war for less 1 year. So those Rohingya people lost their home, their properties, everything. Now they have to move to IDPs, and they have been living there. We are no international agency or reaching to help the people. So without any human train services, human train support, those people are surviving, in a very difficult situation. So for those people, the Ramadan is unbearable. In this situation, I don't think they will have freedom of praying in the mosque, because most of the mosques are already destroyed by the bomb, by the so since there are so many destruction during the war, so
Mm,
those people also do not have mosque to pray together. So they do not yet return to their home. Most of the people are still in the IDPs. So those, for them, the Ramadan is much more difficult than people in the refugee camp.
mm,
So, and from the Rohingya refugee in camp, so they can celebrate their Ramadan very freely in terms of the religious perspective. They have freedom of praying, fasting and gathering. So they can pray to Tarawih together. So, and all these activities are uh, you know. Uh, there is no restriction for those activities in the refugee camp.
mm,
So, and also since hope you have know about the visit of the UN Secretary General in the refugee camp, last week or few days ago, with the advisor of the Bangladesh government, Dr. Yunus. So when they visited here, and they break the fast with the more than 100,000 people.
mm,
So, and with that kind of initiative, so through that kind of initiative, Rohingya people in the refugee camp get some hope, from the people of Bangladesh, also the international community, that they when they give some hope to the Rohingya people during this gathering, that you will be celebrating the Nas Eid in your own country.
mm,
So also at that time, people feel like people again they started hoping of returning to their homeland.
mm, mm,
So all those things are like Rohingya people experiencing in the refugee camp and surviving with a hope that to return to their home country. But from other side, with the same people, with this the Rohingya people who are inside the country, when they do not have all those freedom, to celebrate the Ramadan, so that thing also make us to feel worry about the future, what the future might look in, in the Arkan state, if we return and if the situation remain the same,
mm,
you know.
mm. No, very, very concerning and a bleak picture that you paint there. But unfortunately, we have run out of time, Brother Abdullah. Jazakallah so much for giving us insight into what's happening in the refugee camps and just how the Rohingya people have a contrasting Ramadan compared to, other people around the world. It's a sad state of affairs. It looks like it's a difficult and testing month, but I can assure you that you're all in our prayers, and hopefully God will make it easy for you. Jazakallah so much for joining us and giving us your time.
Thank you so much for having me here. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. That was a documentary filmmaker, photographer, Abdullah, and he's coming to us live from one of the refugee camps where the people of Rohingya, are enduring a testing Ramadan. And this is a story that is not documented that well. And I think we need to heed more attention, shed light on it, make noise about the plight of Rohingya Muslims who are essentially surviving a Ramadan. Imagine that, surviving on what, $6 a month, and Abdullah's there saying it only gets you 2 bananas, and that's for the month. It's not for the day. It's not $6 a day, $6 a month. It's really, really unimaginable. But yeah, there has been another eye-opening and heartbreaking edition of Ramadan Under Occupation, and we'll have another edition of this segment tomorrow, where we hone in on another group of Muslims in a different part of the world who are also enduring a testing Ramadan, and one that is very, very contrasting to what you and I here in South Africa or in any other part of the world, which is a bit blessed. It really puts things into perspective. It makes you appreciate what you have a bit more. But yeah, we'll be here. Salam Media continue to tell those stories and to amplify the voices of those that have been oppressed. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, News and Views continues after this.
This is Salam Media.